About a year ago, a reality show started filming in Iraq titled In the Grip of Law. And now episodes are being released which feature convicted terrorists that are coming face to face with the victims or the families of victims of their car bombings or terrorist attacks. Now, this is a controversial reality show, and the whole purpose of it was to kind of drum up support for the troops in Iraq and also the authorities in Iraq that go after these insurgents or terrorists. But there are questions as to whether or not this is the right thing to do. So first, let me give you a little bit of background into this reality show. The show is produced by state-run Iraqiyya TV. It's among dozens of programs, cartoons, and musical public service announcements aimed at shoring up support for the troops after their humiliating defeat last summer at the hands of the Islamic State group, which now controls about a third of the country. Okay, so that's the whole reasoning behind it. And what's kind of interesting is during their breaks, they actually have like jingoistic music playing. You know what I mean? Like they'll have people singing like nationalistic songs.
They have the troops, it's even worse. They have the Iraqi troops singing patriotic songs like Iraq is the best and so are our troops. I made up those lyrics.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, now if you were the best, you might have stayed and fought with ISIS, but look, this is a really mixed story. Because on the one hand, it's clearly propaganda, and it makes me uncomfortable. And it actually reminds me of the Saddam days. I have now gone back and watching House of Saddam on HBO, and it reminds you of all the things that he did. One of the things he was good at is propaganda, where everything is because of Saddam. You owe everything to Saddam. Saddam is the protector of Iraq. Saddam is great. I mean, this is, Dictator 101. Of course, what Kim Jong-un is doing in North Korea, what his dad and grandfather did, etc. So this whole idea of like, yay, everybody, look at the great heroic acts of our army in fighting back against terrorism. Right? At the same time, it is an interesting show.
Yeah, it is interesting because think about it. This is a person who's been convicted of doing a car bombing, let's say, and then they come face to face with family members of the victims. And the family members of the victims are understandably livid and outraged, and they want to tear them apart. And all of a sudden, you see this terrorist kind of break down and cry, which of course I have no sympathy or empathy for him whatsoever. But nonetheless, it is an interesting reality show. And also, their whole point is also to deter people from joining the Islamic State.
Look, I think it's interesting on two levels. One, could you really not watch it? I mean, if you're in Iraq, how do you take your eyes off of that, right? I mean, to be fair, it is certainly an interesting moment when the person who's been convicted, that's the guy in yellow, meets up with the families of the people he killed, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, again, a caveat to that is they assure us that these are the people who actually did it.
Yep.
And they say that they confessed over and over again. Well...
So there are issues with that as well. Now, let me give you the side of the people behind the reality show. They say we wanted to produce a program that offers clear and conclusive evidence with the complete story presented and shown to Iraqi audiences. Through surveillance videos, we show how the accused parked the car, how he blew it up, how he carries out an assassination. So they're saying, look, we're not just showing you this confrontation, we're also showing you how we gathered the evidence to either charge or convict these people, right? But Amnesty International is not buying it. In fact, they say the justice system is so flawed and the rights of detainees, especially those accused of terrorism, but not only are so routinely violated that it is virtually impossible to be confident that they would be able to speak freely. So oftentimes what they rely on is confessions, and a lot of times these confessions are obtained through torturous methods.
Yeah. And so we're familiar with that here in the U.S., having done similar things, of course. Now, on the other hand, for those interactions that are genuine, the audience does get something out of it. It's not just entertainment, right? To see, to watch a terrorist, for the ones that actually did do it, see the family members and realize, oh right, I blew up their dad, I blew up their kids. and then have a human reaction, that is a really interesting moment that people can learn from.
Yeah, I also think it's an interesting social experiment, right? Because, these big bad terrorists seem like they're so tough. So it's really fascinating to see them break down once they come face to face with victims or victims' family members.
And now that you say that, Anna, I bet there's another consequence of this that they probably did not anticipate. It will also humanize the terrorist in a way where people might say, oh yeah, they're terrible, and of course, look at those poor families and what they did to them. But it turns out they're not some weird, monstrous, non-human entity. They're also human, and they regret it. And I don't know to what degree they'll let the terrorists say why they did it. Right? But I bet that's an effect that they didn't bank on that might also come out of the show. So that's why I find it to be a fascinating show. And look, the other issue here is, and as you can tell, there's really good arguments on both sides. You know how TV is. The TV's the same everywhere. It's going to sensationalize stuff.
Yep.
So then how much damage do you do to the truth and to learning as you go through that process, right? But despite all that, I got to say, I would watch it, and I'm very interested by it.
I would watch it, but I'm not going to pretend like a small part of me would be uncomfortable with it, because regardless of all the possible good things that you can take away from it, there's still a little bit of an issue because this seems like it's there for entertainment as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
of course.
Exploiting a tragic situation like that for entertainment value, even if that's only a portion of what their intentions are, still makes me uncomfortable.
No, if you watch it, you got to take it with a giant grain of salt, like a boulder, a crater of salt, right? Because it's done for entertainment purposes, so it could be sensationalized, and also it's done for propaganda purposes, right? So understand all that, and then see what you believe and don't believe, and you might get something interesting out of it.
Yeah.